girls, grab your beers.
Hey everybody, this is Charlie from Anthrax, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle.
This is Mark Metcalf, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle with Bailey on Domain Cleveland Radio.
You are listening to today's Boondoggle with Bailey on Domain Cleveland Radio. Yes, Kato Kalin listens to this all the time.
Welcome to today's Boondoggle. Now here's your host.
I am Monty Heath, SO1 Heath, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle.
Hey, what's up? It's John from Skillet, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle on Domain Cleveland Radio.
Fasten your seatbelts.
Sonic Temple Art and Music Festival returns to historic Cruise Stadium. Slipknot, Disturbed, Pantera, The Original Misfits, Evanescence, Limp Bizkit, Judas Priest, Stain, Breaking Benjamin, A Day to Remember, Falling in Reverse, Sleep Token, Rise Again, 311, Seether, Mudvayne, and many more. May 16th through the 19th, Columbus, Ohio. Tickets on sale now at SonicTempleFestival.com.
What's going on, everybody? It's Bill Bailey with today's Boondoggle. And a real quick housekeeping note, if you're watching us on YouTube or Rumble or BitChute or Odyssey, please hit that follow and subscribe button. If you're listening to us on Spotify, Google, Apple, whatever podcast platform you utilize, please hit that follow and subscribe button so we can continue to bring you conversations like the one I'm bringing you today. Talking to Bryan Scott of the band The Union Underground. What's going on, man?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man. I'm getting caught up on my union dues, man. But looking forward to seeing you guys when you hit the Cleveland area here with the Back to the 2000s tour.
Yeah, are you going to be able to make it out?
Oh yeah. It's already on my calendar, man, for sure.
Oh, awesome.
Looking forward to that. But yeah, usually when I have somebody on for the first time, I like to get a quick background. So do you remember originally what you wanted to be when you grew up?
I did. I guess around 10, I had an uncle in the family that was a lawyer, and I thought he was a corporate lawyer, right? Not criminal or that kind of thing. And I just found his lifestyle fascinating, and I loved how skillful he was at arguing. You know,
Yeah.
Even as a kid, I admired his articulation, and so I'm a 10-year-old, and he kind of fascinated me. And so, I used to tell my grandmother and my mom that, I was going to be a lawyer, of course, because I just kind of wanted to be like my uncle. But once the guitar came into focus, that was all a distant memory.
Yeah. So and what, around what age were you when guitar came in and music kind of caught your attention?
I guess 12 was my first guitar at 12, got the first acoustic guitar, and then I think 13 was my first electric, and, just started picking things apart myself, and then got into lessons probably, at 14.
Nice.
So a little late start for, a lot of kids, they're just killing it at 6 and 8 years old these days. It's amazing, And
then what was who were some of your early influences that kind of guided you there?
Guys, really across the board, but early on when I was first learning to play guitar, there was a lot of just great 70s rock and roll playing in the house as a kid. So, my mom listened to the Eagles and Aerosmith, old ZZ Top records, that kind of thing. is where I first kind of got, just fascinated with the sound of a guitar, from those kind of records. So that's kind of what started it. And then, of course, the 80s hit, and I was, just blown away by, Back in Black and Shout at the Devil and Screaming for Vengeance, Van Halen 1, all that stuff was just nonstop in my cassette player at the time.
Yeah.
The Walkman.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And then as you started like really getting into that, when did you start like forming bands with like-minded musicians in your area?
I was doing backyard parties and things like that from the 7th or 8th grade on. We would form just little, gather a little group of friends and play just a bunch of cover songs. And I was really into Randy Rhoads at the time, so we were learning all the Ozzy songs with the Randy stuff. And it was a blast.
Nice. And then what was like the music scene like around your area growing up?
It was kind of crazy because back then, I mean, a local band would put on a show and like 1,000 people would show up, and that was like commonplace, and then once I kind of got into my late 20s, early late 20s, it all kind of changed. I mean, the scene changed a lot, but I mean, it was nice when, when we were in high school. I mean, we'd put 1,000 people into a club just, on a random weekend. It's insane.
Nice. And then when did the Union Underground come together for you?
The first kind of versions of it were right out of high school, really. There were quite a few versions of it, little name changes here and there and stuff, but the concept kind of started, that far back.
What was one of the like earliest band names that you had?
Oh Lord. Yeah, you're really squeezing me into a corner here.
I always enjoy hearing the creativity, I guess, of high school students.
We had some
Wild Stallions.
Yeah. We had some hilarious names. So, of course, when I was in this is probably like 85, 87. So of course, glam was huge, right? And, me and my buddies kind of went through our little glam phase for a while. And we had a band called Boyzen Heat. Now, it was spelled Boyzen to fit the era, of course, right? So nice. Boyzen Heat. Yeah, just, it can't get worse. It can't get worse than that. We had one called, we were called Hell's Groove for a while, which is funny because Hell's Groove turned into Grooves Union, which turned into Union being taken out of that and thrown into a version of the Velvet Underground that became the Union Underground.
Nice. Oh yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Like, too, when you guys decide on Union Underground, what was some of the inspiration or the meaning for you picking that?
Yeah, it was really just I always loved the way that name sound. I liked the phrasing of the Velvet Underground, and you replace a word and there it is. It's not that interesting of a story, but that's it was that simple.
And then as you guys as you settled on that and you started playing out, like you said, we would put 1,000 people in a local venue, on a weekend. When did you guys hit your spot where labels started calling, or how did that go for you guys getting noticed and getting back out on the road on more of a national stage?
Mm-hmm. probably 98 we put out a self-released CD and started selling those at our shows and stuff, and we were selling a lot of them, and we were kind of making a name for ourselves in the region down here, and we hooked up with a management company that started shopping our stuff around, and everyone thinks it's kind of an overnight thing, but it was really several years of showcasing and labels passing on us, and you spend another 6 months working on a thing, and then you go showcase and they pass, and it's a process. But we finally got Sony Music and John Kolodner really interested in us, and we again with them we showcased probably 4 or 5 times before we finally got the green light in around late 99. So from the time that we put out our EP, it really wasn't that. It's probably a year and a half before we inked the Sony deal.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, like you were saying, a lot of people don't know. Like I've seen it here with Cleveland bands that had to keep building their own brand, and for finally the labels to notice is like you were saying, you put out your own CD and you started selling a lot of copies, and when they start seeing numbers, then that's when they really start paying more. And then how dedicated you are. I think it's part of like the testing ground. Like if we invest behind this band, are they going to fold, or are they, we've already turned them down a couple times, but they keep coming back,
Yeah. I mean, as we all know, in any business sector, talent is, half the battle. I mean, everything, it's tenacity, the talent part of it's kind of a given, or, no one would be in the room, right? But the tenacity is what sets you apart, and just the drive and dedication. And we were just hands down the hardest working bands around. There was no question. And that was very obvious, to them as well.
And then as the Sony deal came together, did you expect when An Education and Rebellion album came together, did you what was that transition like when then all of a sudden you get that's out there, your work is paying off, and then all of a sudden there you are like on the national stage? What was that like for you guys?
Oh, it's a dream come true, because that's what you're working. That's just what you're working towards the entire time. And when it starts to unfold, like you said, on a national level, it's amazing, man. The thing is too, though, when your head's down and you're just working constantly, you don't always get to enjoy it all. You're just an entire year can go by. It's like we've been on the road forever. We've sold a lot of records, videos, and everything, and you kind of don't get a lot of chance to soak it in until a couple of years after a cycle, an album cycle. But it's amazing.
And then there's always seems to be like that pressure then though too. As soon as you start almost getting like enjoying it, like you were saying, then there's that pressure like, okay, now we got to put out another album and we got to try and do, better than, this one that everybody is like,
Yeah. Well, 20 years later, they'll get their chance to finally hear
it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. 20 years between records isn't too crazy, It's
no, man.
A little bit of a hiatus.
Come to those who wait, right?
Yeah.
But I know one thing for me that really put you guys on my radar, being the wrestling mark that I am, is when you guys collaborated with the WWE and you did you guys were the theme music for Monday Night Raw for a while. Across the nation. How did that come together for you? And were you a fan before you got, that partnership, or?
Before I wasn't really, I mean, as a kid, when I was, 10, 12, I was into wrestling. And, but later on, when that thing happened, I wasn't familiar with any of the current wrestlers or just, I knew, like, of course, The Rock or, whatever kind of breakout guys. But, and so I got introduced to all those guys when we were doing that project, which was really cool. That also came about as like a compilation thing originally. So Sony, I think it was a Sony thing. Sony approached, or the WWF, approached Sony about having a bunch of bands on this compilation. And, the pitch was to take theme songs from each of the wrestlers and do covers of it, which is what most bands did. I think some stuff on there, like Manson just put like a remix of an old song, and I think Limp Bizkit put a remix of an old song instead of doing the cover thing. Most bands on there, I think, did the cover version of like the theme songs. The one we got, I thought, it just it didn't really connect with me much, and of course, with the wrestling theme song for a wrestler, some of the lyrics are going to be kind of silly, and so I asked them if we could just take I took the bass line of the song and I said, hey, can I just take this groove and just write a Union Underground song with it instead of doing this cover thing for the wrestler. And they said, hey, work on it, send it to us, we'll let you know. And I did a quick scratch of it and sent it over to them, and they loved it. So it was nice that we were able to get actually a Union Underground sounding song on that compilation, because otherwise it just would have been kind of a strange cover thing. So it was nice that it actually went down like that, because otherwise, yeah, that song never would have been written without them pitching that idea,
Yeah, and what was really cool of you taking, you betting on yourself too during that is like, a lot of those cover songs, it's like, okay, because they were trying to market the CD. I remember that, that was around one of the hottest times in the wrestling business, but
yeah,
also it was just like, those themes would run their course, and then they'd eventually go back to their original theme. So that band would get a little bit of airplay, but you guys got some solid airplay being the theme music of the entire TV show for a good number of years. So
I think it was the theme for 5 years. Yeah.
Yeah, for Monday Night Raw, it was like, yeah.
And
so it's
and
like,
that track was the only song that was released to radio from that entire compilation. So we felt very grateful for that, to be, and the compilation has amazing bands on it. Yeah, I remember when we first got the songs, when everyone first got the songs, we were like, man, we can't, how are we going to cover this thing? It's kind of silly, and so I was friends with David, Johnny Pole and Disturbed, and they're both on there, and we're calling each other, like, ask, like, what are you guys going to do with this? Like, what is going to be your approach? Because no one kind of knew what to do with it, like, how are we going to cover these kind of goofy songs and make them legitimate, and I think both of those guys like did like kind of a strictly a cover version, and they both sound cool, but I just wasn't feeling it with ours. So luckily I was able to kind of break the rules there a bit,
yeah, and I mean, good thing you did that, because like I said, I think it paid off for you guys the most out of that entire compilation.
Yeah.
And then from what I understand, fans will be able to hear that on this upcoming tour, the Back to the 2000s tour. So all the old school like wrestling fans will be like, hey,
Oh, for sure.
Do you happen to recall
that one?
Nice.
I'm sorry.
Do you happen to recall like originally who they pitched you guys to write a theme for?
It was Test.
Test. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, you made the right call then.
Yeah. You know what? There's actually a version of that song that has us, and we got a bunch of buddies from the rehearsal place we were rehearsing at the time, that we actually recorded that song in our rehearsal space, chanting Test in the breakdown of across the nation, because they wanted some kind of connection to the name of the wrestler. Luckily that has not been heard by many people. I mean, it's basically across the nation with this chant in the breakdown, which really makes no sense, because the breakdown kind of breaks down to this smooth kind of, ethereal thing. And then we're just chanting the word Test over and over because they needed something for his entrance, right?
Yeah.
So I think it was only used, at the arena shows. It was never released or anything, I have a version of it in my stash, I'm trying to keep it under wraps.
Yeah, keep that thing under lock and key. Right?
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, once again, just kind of betting on yourself and sticking to it, because most people are just probably excited for the opportunity. You're like, okay, but
yeah,
you stayed true to your brand, and it paid off being the theme music for a good number of years, a good run with WWE, and hopefully, there was a decent check coming for a while.
Yeah, and it still does, to be honest. I mean, anything that's in syndication like that, pays licensing fees for, in perpetuity, So
nice.
Yeah.
And then, so getting back to, the current tour, coming back out, bringing it back to the 2000s, coming out with SOiL, Raw, and FLAW. What was the, what was like the inspiration to put this bill together and kind of come back out and, win over the new fans, but also bring the old school fans out?
Yeah, Tim and I from SOiL, had been talking about doing something together for the last, 2 or 3 years, and we're just trying to get the right timing. And and there's a lot of moving parts with the tour like that, so just getting everyone's schedules to work out, and it finally just happened. We've been talking about it for a few years, and Tim came up with the idea for the theme, and he pitched it to me like, hey man, what do you think about this back to the 2000s kind of thing? And I thought it was cool. It had a nice kind of throwback feel to it, and all of the bands that are on it, just fit that theme for sure.
And this relationship that you have with like Tim and SOiL and stuff, I mean, this was formed back in the 2000s, basically. Like, I think I was reading, like, you guys on Ozzfest.
Oh yeah, and we did, when they first released their record, we did a lot of shows with those guys. We road dogged it with them for a while. I believe that was 2001 is when, yeah, it was 2001, because they had the unfortunate release date of 9/11/2001. Like, that's when their record came out.
Oh,
so
yeah.
That day, yeah. So I know Tim has talked about that a lot. So we toured through that whole fall, and I think some of the next summer as well with those guys. Yeah, so we go way back. We have a lot of history. And Tim and Adam from SOiL and I have a side project called Into the Fire that we like to, dig into whenever everyone has a little time to mess around with that stuff. We put out an EP a few years back, and we have a couple of other songs that are actually already arranged, and we just need to get around to releasing them and, you know, kind of finishing out the mixes.
Oh, nice. So yeah, so like many years of road dogging with those guys, you form this, like, it's almost like, you know, I guess I could compare it to maybe my time deployed or whatever, you know, you're away from family, you're out, you know, in strange areas, and you form these bonds that can last a lifetime. You guys have kept that going, and now, like you said, you've got this project Into the Fire with them as well. So it was easy, almost a no-brainer to put this together with those guys, you know, and get on the road.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, it's interesting that you equate it to that, because you know, a lot of us have felt that way after getting off the road, that you've, you know, because everyone, it's like, obviously clearly not in the danger that you guys are in, you know, but it's the same focus, it's the same mentality that, like, all of us have a job to get done, and it requires all of us working together to get it done right. And you just do that day after day after day, depend on each other. You know, you're there for each other through struggles and chaos. And so, yeah, when you come off the road, it is difficult to kind of, you know, plant yourself back into a normal existence with family and friends and loved ones. It feels very strange for a while, which I'm sure you felt the same way. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
yeah, for sure.
I mean, it's like, and you get so burned out on the road, but then as soon as you're home, you feel like a stranger in a strange land, just being at home, you know. It's an interesting dynamic, you know.
Yeah, you know, it's like, I know, you know, there was a time where I actually missed deployment, you know, early on, you know, where I wanted to be back over there instead of
which
home
most
with my
people
family.
most people would find completely insane to hear you say that, but they just don't know what it's like, you know.
Yeah. And then but, you know, I mean, you guys end up forming this bond, which has carried over now over the years. How, like, what would you say you guys learned from back then touring together that you're prepared for and are looking forward to taking into this tour now together?
I would imagine, first of all, that everyone will probably be way less hungover than we were 20 years ago, you know. Yeah. Even if you have the desire, I don't think anyone, you know, is going to be able to handle that kind of horrible manipulation to the body that we all self-imposed on ourselves, you know, 20 years ago. So I think it'll be, you know, less chaos as a result of that, which is nice. And you know, just more chill, man, as far as back, you know, off the stage, you know, because the problem is when you're 27, the chaos on the stage follows you off the stage, and it never ends, you know. Now that everyone's, you know, a bit more mature, a bit, it's, you know, it'll actually be, I think, funner for everyone, you know, because everyone's just a bit more of a grown-up, and there's, you know, less nonsense to deal with.
Yeah, and I agree,
and we're all
man.
and we're all friends. We've all been friends for years, so, you know, it's fantastic. It's just like a road trip with your buddies.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm currently 14 years sober, so it's like, you know, I remember the times before and now it's like when I hit shows, I actually remember the conversations I have with people.
Yeah.
I remember, what order songs were played in. I actually feel and enjoy things a lot more
Yeah.
now. So
Yep.
definitely looking forward to, and then I can get up the next morning and be functional,
It's funny you say that. Like whenever I go to shows as a fan, and I don't like to drink or anything when I'm going to shows because of that reason. Like I like to soak it all in.
Yeah.
When I have been partaking and gone to shows, like I don't enjoy it as much. But I totally feel you on that.
Yeah, not at all, man. Now you mentioned that you guys have been doing this project Into the Fire. Any chance that we might hear a couple of those live on this tour?
Oh yeah, that is the question. We have chatted about it, so we'll have to see if how that. There's really no reason not to. So
Yeah,
I'm sure
all the players are there. It sounds like so.
yeah, I'm sure it'll come up. So I think that would be a blast for people.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, if anything, let's see. March 19th is when I'll be seeing you guys in the Cleveland area. So try and plan on throwing a few out there for that.
Right on. Yeah, we might have to close out the show with a couple Into the Fire songs.
Nice. And then before we get ready to wrap up, I wanted to ask you a couple of questions I normally ask guests that I have on, but is there a particular, I mean, you're a musician, there's you've written songs that from your heart to pass on to inspire others with. Is there any songs that are go-tos for you that like when you're going through a rough time inspire you and pick you back up?
Oh wow, yeah. I mean, there's so many over the years. I tend to. It's funny. I probably things for even if it's not something that would lyrically, you know, change my tone, or help you through or inspire you, like you said. Sometimes just a piece of music, and sometimes it's even something that would be that you wouldn't think. I would put on, like just Back in Black, the record, because it just reminds me. It just reminds me of a time that I revere, as a kid. So there's little things like that. Not particularly specific songs, but sometimes just albums as a whole will represent something that's comforting for me.
Nice. And then now you're saying we're much more, somewhat, well, not much more, but maybe somewhat more mature, in our life travels, our life experiences now. What class do you feel should be mandatory before graduating high school today?
What class?
Yeah.
Be mandatory. So what do you mean? Like, for example?
Like, well, with everything that you've learned from the original days out there on the road, lifestyle changes, and to where you're at today, what is something maybe you wish you had known prior that you think would help kids today before they get out there in the real world?
I can tell you this, and I think, from what you said about your sobriety, that one of the biggest downfalls and something that can take a good person down is just drugs and alcohol. I mean, it's just can destroy the best people, you know. That is something, you know, that if I would have known then what I know now and have experienced, not only myself, but have watched so many friends just, you know, tank their lives, man, you know, and people that had amazing potential,
Yeah.
you know, that have not only ruined their lives and are dead, you know. If I knew the destruction that causes, that would have been nice to know. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree, man, for sure. And then, you know, especially like I saw so many people that had some, you know, had reached that realization, that had some good sobriety in them. And then when we went through, you know, the lockdowns and stuff, you know, go back out, you know, they didn't have that
Yep.
firm foundation to, you know, and they didn't come back. We lost a lot of them, man. So
You know, I heard that statistic too from a lot of sources that, you know, there were tons of relapses and a lot of addiction issues and depression and just, you know, a lot of mental health issues, and the sales of alcohol were through the roof, you know, during the pandemic, which, you know, you can see how that would happen. But yeah, that is unfortunate. A lot of people kind of fell off, I bet, you know.
yeah, and insanity too is like, you know, how gyms and places that would help your mental health and health and well-being were shut down, but bars
Right.
opened up quicker, you know, or liquor
Right,
stores. So that
right.
was, I don't know, the whole thing was bizarro world, but that's a whole nother podcast, I guess.
Yeah, that's a 2-hour podcast right there. That whole thing was insane. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And then who are 3 people who've inspired you and you can credit for making you the person you are today?
Oh, my grandmother, 100%. My mom, and God, 3 people. That is tough because those 2 ladies really took care of business. I think, you know, I might have to leave it with the 2 of them because it's hard to find anything else that would fit into the same tier.
Gotcha. And then favorite toy as a child?
Oh man. I had so many. You know what I remember loving the most? Of course, I was fascinated with racetracks. Like, you know, the original racetracks had the real rubber tires that would, you know, you could smell them burning and stuff around the track, and the little electric thing that kept it in there. That thing would start burning. I used to love that smell. I loved racetracks, and I had the. Do you remember the Evil Knievel bike where you pull the thing, you
Yeah.
pull the lever, and that had real rubber tires on it and stuff, and it was made of metal. That was cool about toys back then, is that they were made out of, you know, real stuff. You know, it wasn't just plastic, and that thing I loved that. And of course, you know, I had the $6 Million Man doll. I loved that thing.
Dude, yeah, all right. Yeah, man. I've had that Evil Knievel has been like one of the most mentioned ones when I asked this question for
Is that
guys
right?
around our
You know what?
age group.
It's crazy because I never see it, and I have some buddies that are real toy collectors and stuff, and I have never actually seen one in person since I was a kid. You know?
Yeah, those are hard to come by, man.
Yeah. I have no idea what happened to mine. Yeah, but I loved that thing.
Nice. And then any message you have for our military members that are currently serving overseas?
Oh, wow. Yeah, and God, all over the world, there's craziness happening, isn't there? Well, I mean, obviously, that all of us at home are, eternally grateful for, the safety and security that you provide us is not taken for granted. I mean, it's kind of amazing the country we live in. I was just talking about this with my wife. Like, I don't think we understand how lucky we are. Like, we're conditioned to it, so it's hard to feel that way all the time. But when you see what has to be done to continue living the way we do, the sacrifices that these guys make is phenomenal. I mean, for us to just continue living as Americans in a free society that we do, it's amazing. So
Nice.
hats off and all the love in the world and to those guys and gals, obviously, and come home safe.
Awesome. Man, Bryan, thank you so much for your time. I'm glad we were able to chat, and I'm looking forward to meeting you March 19th at the Winchester when you guys come through town with the Back to the 2000s tour. Now, if there's some fans out there that are listening that might not have been around, for the 2000s and want to get hip to you guys before you come to their town, where would you send them?
TheUnionUnderground.com is where you can find, everything Union, all our socials, music, merch, all that stuff. So that's the main hub.
Nice. Awesome. And then can I ask you one last favor before I let you go?
Sure.
You mind cutting a promo ID for the show? Just introduce yourself, and you're listening to today's Boondoggle.
Okay. Boondoggle, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, this is Bryan Scott from the Union Underground. You're listening to the Boondoggle.
Awesome. Bryan, thanks again, man. It was really great talking with you. And like I said, I look forward to catching you at the Winchester on March 19th.
Yeah, right on. Looking forward to meeting you.
All right. Take care.
Thanks, man.